Welcome to Media Times Podcast, your go-to podcast for the latest on trending global events and stories that matter. I'm your host, John, and joining me is my co-host, Sarah.
Hello, everyone. You are welcome once again to today's podcast. In today's episode, we're diving into the latest legal developments surrounding Allen Onyema, the CEO of Nigeria's largest airline, Air Peace. Onyema is facing fresh charges from U.S. authorities in a case that's been ongoing since 2019. We're going to break down the accusations, the company's response, and what this means for the future of Air Peace.
It's a story that has rocked both Nigeria and international circles, with new charges of obstruction of justice adding to an already complex bank fraud case. So buckle up as we unpack all the details and discuss the potential fallout for one of Nigeria's most important companies.
Okay, so when you first sent this Air Peace stuff over, gotta admit, I was hooked. Like, this whole thing, it's got everything, right? International intrigue, high finance, we've even got a main character, right? Allen Onyema. He's the founder of, get this, Nigeria's biggest airline. Who knew the airline biz could be so wild, huh?
Yeah.
But before we even get to the charges and all that, let's take a sec for anyone who's not up on Air Peace. So picture this, okay? Reliable service, they're connecting all these cities across Nigeria, even doing some international routes. Basically, they're a big deal, especially in an economy that's like rapidly growing. So when the news dropped that their founder was facing these, U.S. charges, it was a huge shock.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that brings us to today's deep dive. We're digging into all these charges against Onyema and, of course, his chief of finance, Ijiro Ogaga. We'll try to untangle how they got here and really what it could mean for the future of, well, Air Peace. Okay, so rewind to 2019. The U.S. Justice Department makes this huge announcement. They're accusing Onyema and Ogaga of a $20 million bank fraud scheme. The U.S. is claiming that Onyema used his company in the U.S., Springfield Aviation, to basically funnel money out of Nigeria. And they did it, they're saying, by pretending to buy aircraft. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, totally.
The aircraft, the ones in all the documents. Well, the U.S. says those aircraft never actually belonged to Springfield Aviation, and they were never sold.
Wow. So how could they even, what was the strategy there?
That's the million-dollar question.
Okay, so the whole scheme, it all comes down to these things called letters of credit. They're really important in international trade. They basically guarantee that the seller is going to get paid, even if the buyer backs out. Think of it like a safety net, for the seller.
Right. So they don't get left high and dry.
Exactly. But in this case, the U.S. is saying those letters of credit were totally manipulated. They were supposed to be for real aircraft purchases, but, well, something else was going on entirely.
Okay, so we've got these letters of credit being used in a way they weren't supposed to. But hold on. How do Onyema and Ogaga fit into this?
Huh.
What were their alleged roles?
That's where it gets even more, intricate. The U.S. says Onyema, being the CEO and all, he was the brains behind the whole plan. They're saying he was pulling the strings, moving the money, and using Springfield Aviation as, a cover.
And Ogaga?
Right. Ogaga was the chief of finance. They're saying he was the one handling the operations, creating fake documents, making the assets look more valuable than they were on paper to justify the money being moved around, stuff like that.
Wow, so it was like a whole operation.
It seems like it.
Yeah.
And then there's another person mixed up in all of this. Ebony Mayfield. She's American, and she was hired to manage Springfield Aviation.
Okay. What about her?
Well, the U.S. government alleges she was essential to the scheme because she was the one who actually gave the fake documents to the banks in the U.S.
And she's been sentenced already, right?
She has, which is interesting. 3 years of probation.
3 years? That seems, kind of light for a scheme this big, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does seem pretty light, right? And the thing is, it's because she decided to cooperate with U.S. authorities. So, who knows what kind of information she's given them?
Oh, juicy. So she's the key, maybe.
She could be. Her cooperation could really be what shines a light on how much Onyema and Ogaga were really involved in this whole thing.
Mayfield and her cooperation, that really adds a whole other layer to this whole thing.
Yeah, no kidding.
But wait, there's more, right? Things take kind of a turn we didn't see coming.
Oh, yeah.
So get this. New charges pop up against Onyema. Obstruction of justice and conspiracy to obstruct justice.
Whoa. Okay, so that's a pretty big deal. Those new charges, it kind of implies that they think Onyema was trying to, mess with their investigation. Like maybe they have evidence that goes way beyond those initial, money trails they were following.
So what are these new charges all about? What kind of evidence are we talking here?
It all comes down to this one contract.
What?
Apparently it was signed way back in 2019. And at first glance, it made it seem like there was this big, important deal. And the timing, right? It was before all that alleged fraud was supposed to have gone down. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
The U.S. is saying that the date on that contract, totally faked. They're saying it was backdated on purpose just to throw them off track.
Wow. So if they can actually prove that, that means
big trouble for Onyema.
because it means he was trying to mislead them.
Exactly. And that's never a good look, especially in a case like this. Obstruction of justice, it often means they think you're hiding something way bigger, you know?
Right, right.
So even if that initial evidence, the bank fraud stuff, even if that's not a slam dunk, this just makes everything look worse for him.
Yeah, it's like trying to hide a tiny fire and accidentally revealing this, like, huge inferno behind you.
Totally. Jurors, they see that and they're going to think, okay, what's he really trying to hide? Makes them more likely to believe he was involved from the start.
And through all of this, Airpeace is trying to act like, well, like everything's normal.
Business as usual.
Yeah, they keep putting out these statements saying Onyema and Igaga are innocent, insisting that flights and, like, day-to-day operations are totally fine.
Right, which, I mean, from a business standpoint, it makes sense. They have to try to reassure everyone, their customers, people who invest in the company, everyone they work with, that they're still reliable.
Got to keep those planes in the air.
For sure. They're trying to separate the company, Airpeace, from Onyema, the individual.
Classic move, right? Trying to distance themselves.
Absolutely. But let's be real. The line's going to get blurry. Onyema's the head honcho. He can't exactly lead if he's stuck dodging those U.S. charges, can he?
Right, right. It's not like he can just, like, zoom into those court dates.
Exactly. It makes you wonder about the future of Airpeace. Can they really function like this long term?
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But this whole thing, it's like you said, it's way bigger than just one airline, right? There's so much more to it than that. It's like this whole Airpeace case, it's got these, like, tentacles reaching everywhere.
It really it's not just about one airline or even one guy. This case, this shines a light on, like, all this stuff. International finance, how tricky those extradition treaties can be.
Yeah.
Even the relationship between the U.S. and Nigeria.
Okay, so break it down for me a bit.
Sure.
When you say international finance, like, what kind of impact could this have?
Well, imagine you're a U.S. bank, right?
Okay.
You're used to working with Nigerian businesses, no problem. But then this whole thing happens.
It's gonna make you nervous, right?
Exactly. Are they going to be as willing to work with Nigerian businesses now? Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably going to be more careful, double-checking everything. And that can slow down investment. And when investment slows, the whole economy can feel it, both in the U.S. and Nigeria.
Right. It's like this breach of trust that just throws everything off.
Exactly. And then there's the whole extradition thing.
Yeah, what about that?
So Nigeria and the U.S., they have a treaty, but it's not exactly simple.
Right.
And Onyema, he's been steering clear of the U.S. this whole time.
He has.
So it really makes you wonder if he'll ever even see the inside of a U.S. courtroom.
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
It is. And that leaves us with a lot of what-ifs.
Like, what if he's found guilty? What then?
Right. Or what if he's found not guilty?
Yeah.
What about Airpeace in all of this?
It's not like any of this is good for their image.
Exactly. Even if he's totally innocent, the doubt's still there, you know? That uncertainty can hang over a company for years.
So where does Airpeace even go from here? Could they try to, I don't know, distance themselves from him, like bring in a whole new leadership team?
Maybe. They could try to rebrand,
Yeah.
emphasize how committed they are to transparency, all that.
Right. But would it be enough?
That's the question, isn't it? Would it be enough to satisfy the U.S. or even the public?
It's a tough spot to be in. This whole situation just really highlights how important, like, due diligence is.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in international business.
It's not just about the bottom line. It's about knowing who you're working with.
100%.
And of course, it raises questions about accountability, right?
Absolutely. What kind of systems do we need to prevent something like this from happening again?
So many questions, and it doesn't seem like we're getting answers anytime soon.
Not likely.
Right.
This is a case with a long tail. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on it.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive, even if it is a bit unsettling. Thanks for walking us through it all.
Happy to be here. Always interesting to unpack these kinds of stories.
And for everyone listening, we want to hear from you. What questions does this whole Airpeace saga bring up for you? Hit us up on social media. We're always up for a good discussion.